The Ashcan debris field floated in the darkness like a graveyard of giants. Twisted metal and shattered hulls drifted through the void, remnants of a war that ended 200 years ago. The Valdran Empire and the Kethik swarm had torn each other apart here, and neither side had returned to collect their dead. Captain Elena Reeves stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, watching the debris pass by on her screens. Her ship was small and ugly, a patchwork of repairs and modifications that kept it flying. 47 crew members worked behind her, scanning the wreckage for anything valuable. They were salvagers, the bottom feeders of the galaxy. Other species looked down on them, but Elena didn't care. Salvage work paid the bills. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual," said Marcus Chen, her chief engineer. He was a broad-shouldered man with grease permanently under his fingernails. "Sector 7 has wreckage from at least 7 different species. Some of the weapon systems are still intact." Elena leaned forward. Military-grade technology was forbidden salvage. The Galactic Council had strict laws about it, but intact weapon systems could feed her crew for a year. "Show me," she said. The screen displayed a dense cluster of wreckage, Valdran cruisers with their distinctive curved armor, Kethik vessels that looked like insects made of metal, even some Cytheri scout ships, their crystalline hulls cracked but still glowing faintly. It was a treasure trove and also a massive risk. "That's Council-protected territory," said her first officer, a nervous woman named Sarah Park. "If they catch us..." "They won't catch us if we're quick," Elena interrupted. "Marcus, take a team. I want a full inventory in 2 hours." Before Marcus could respond, the proximity alarm screamed. A ship had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, appearing less than 5 kilometers away. Elena's blood went cold as she recognized the design. Valdran Military, a patrol cruiser sleek and deadly with weapons that could vaporize the Perseverance in seconds. "Attention, human vessel." The voice that came through the speakers was cold and sharp. "You are in violation of Galactic Council Decree 47. Depart immediately or be destroyed." Elena gritted her teeth. The Valdran always spoke to humans like they were talking to children. Humanity had only been traveling through space for 200 years, and the older species never let them forget it. "This is Captain Reeves of the Perseverance," she said, keeping her voice steady. "We're just passing through. No violations intended. Your sensors have been active. You are scanning military wreckage." The Valdran commander appeared on screen. He was tall and reptilian, with golden scales and cold black eyes. "I am High Talon Zisk. You will power down your engines and prepare for inspection." Elena opened her mouth to respond, but never got the chance. The space around them suddenly filled with ships. Not Valdran ships, Kethik ships, dozens of them, appearing from the debris field like predators emerging from tall grass. The Kethik swarm had been quiet for decades, but they never forgot old battlefields. To them, this debris field was still contested territory. High Talon Zisk's face changed from contempt to alarm. "All ships, combat stations. Human vessel, evade," and the transmission cut off as plasma fire lit up the darkness. The Valdran cruiser's shields flared bright blue, absorbing hit after hit. They returned fire, their beam weapons cutting through 2 Kethik ships in seconds, but there were too many attackers. The Kethik swarmed like their name suggested, dozens of small ships attacking from all sides. "Get us out of here," Elena shouted. Her pilot, a young man named Tommy Rodriguez, worked frantically at his controls. "I can't." "They're jamming our FTL drive." The Perseverance shuddered as a plasma bolt grazed their hull. Alarms blared. Another hit like that and they would lose life support. "Into the debris field," Elena commanded. "Hide us in the wreckage." Tommy dove the ship between 2 massive hull sections, threading through gaps barely wider than their ship. Metal scraped against their shields. Behind them, the Valdran cruiser was taking heavy damage. Elena watched as a Kethik boarding pod latched onto its hull. Another explosion, and the cruiser's engines went dark. The Perseverance went deeper into the debris field using the wreckage as cover. Kethik ships searched for them, but the dense metal made scanning difficult. Elena held her breath as 3 enemy ships passed within 100 meters, their sensors sweeping back and forth. Finally, after what felt like hours, the Kethik ships retreated. But they didn't leave the area. Through her long-range sensors, Elena could see them taking up positions around the debris field. They were setting up a blockade. "Status report," she said quietly. Marcus checked his console. "Hull breach on Deck 3 sealed. FTL drive is fried. We're stuck here. And we're reading Valdran life signs in the debris. Looks like escape pods. Elena stared at the screen. The Valdran cruiser was a dead hulk now, torn apart by Kethic weapons. High Talon Zisk and his crew were drifting in escape pods, waiting for rescue that wouldn't come. The Kethic would find them eventually, and they would find the Perseverance too. "Captain, we need to repair the FTL drive and run," Sarah said. "Before they find us," Elena didn't respond. She was looking at the debris field around them. 7 different species, hundreds of ships, weapon systems, power generators, shield emitters, FTL drives, all the pieces of a warship scattered around them like parts in a junkyard. An idea formed in her mind. It was crazy. It was impossible. But Elena had built her entire career on doing impossible things. "We're not running," she said slowly. "What?" Sarah looked at her like she was insane. Elena turned to face her crew. Every eye was on her. She could see their fear, their doubt, but she could also see something else. They were human. And humans had reached the stars in tin cans and prayer. Humans had survived wars and disasters by building solutions from scraps. "We're not running," Elena repeated, her voice growing stronger. "We're building," Marcus blinked. "Building what?" Elena smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. She gestured at the screens, at the vast field of wreckage surrounding them. "A warship," she said. "We're going to build a warship from all of this. And then we're going to fight our way out." The bridge went silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Marcus started laughing. It was a harsh, almost desperate sound. "You're completely insane, Captain." "Probably," Elena admitted. "But we're dead if we stay here. We're dead if we run, so we might as well try something that's never been done before." She looked at each of her crew members in turn. "Humanity doesn't quit. We don't know how. So let's show these aliens what happens when you trap humans in a corner. Let's show them what we can build from their garbage." Marcus wiped his eyes, still grinning. "All right then. Let's build a warship." Marcus Chen floated in zero gravity, staring at the biggest engineering challenge of his life. Around him, twisted metal and broken ships stretched in every direction. He had Elena's orders echoing in his head. "Build a warship from garbage, simple." "This is impossible," said Jennifer Wu, his best welder. She was examining a Valdran shield generator that had been ripped in half. These systems weren't designed to work together. Different power sources, different frequencies, different everything. Marcus pulled out his data pad and started running calculations. Impossible just means nobody's done it yet. Look, the Valdran use crystalline power systems. The Kethic use plasma, but both produce electricity in the end. We just need adapters. Adapters? Jennifer laughed without humor. "Marcus, we're talking about 7 different species technology, 7 different engineering philosophies. This isn't like swapping batteries." "No," Marcus agreed. "It's like building Frankenstein's monster. We take parts that don't belong together and make them work anyway. Humans are good at that." He thought back to his training on Earth. They had taught him about the old space missions, the ones from before humanity had proper technology. Apollo 13, where astronauts built air filters from cardboard and tape. The resource wars, where entire cities ran on improvised power grids. Humanity had always survived by making do with what they had. "Get me that shield generator," he said, "and find me a Kethic power core. I have an idea." Over the next 12 hours, the crew of the Perseverance transformed into a construction team. They used their ship's welding torches to cut apart wreckage. They hauled massive components through space using tether lines and suits. Slowly, impossibly, a structure began to form. The frame came from a destroyed Valdran cruiser. Its spine was still intact, a long, curved piece of super-dense alloy. They attached Kethic weapon mounts to it using human welding techniques. Then they added armor plating from 3 different species, creating a patchwork hull that looked like it had been assembled by a madman. The Valdran survivors watched from their rescue pods in horror and fascination. High Talon Zisk's voice crackled over the radio. "This is insane. You cannot simply weld incompatible technologies together." "Watch us," Elena replied cheerfully. One of the Valdran, a scientist named Tavrix, asked to come aboard. Elena agreed. The reptilian engineer floated through the construction site, his black eyes wide with shock. "You are using a Kethic plasma lance as your main weapon," he said slowly, "attached to a Valdran power distribution system. Those operate on completely different frequencies. The feedback will destroy both systems, Marcus grinned at him. Not after I'm done with them. See, I'm installing a human-designed buffer system. We use it in our factories to convert power between different equipment. It's ugly, but it works. But the tolerances are close enough, Marcus finished. Look, I know this violates every engineering principle you've ever learned. But human engineering is different. We don't aim for perfection. We aim for good enough to survive. Tavrix was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his own tools. Show me how this buffer system works. I want to help. The work continued around the clock. The crew stopped sleeping more than 4 hours at a time. They ate while they worked. They welded and wired and cursed and improvised. The ship growing before them didn't look like anything that should fly. It looked like a nightmare of mismatched parts and desperate repairs. They nicknamed it Franken, short for Frankenstein's monster. The name fit. Elena worked alongside her crew hauling cables and checking systems. She remembered her time in Earth's military, during the border conflicts with the Mars colonies. She had been a young engineer then, fresh out of training. Her unit had been trapped behind enemy lines with no supplies and no support. They had survived by building weapons from mining equipment and power generators from damaged vehicles. Her commander had taught her a valuable lesson. Desperation plus creativity equals survival. Captain, I've got the sensor array working, called Tommy from what would be the bridge. It's a Sithari crystal system hooked up to Valdrin computers running human software. I have no idea how it's working, but it is. That's the spirit, Elena said. How's the FTL drive coming? Marcus appeared, covered in burns and grease. That's the tricky part. I'm trying to combine 3 different FTL systems into one. The math says it shouldn't work, but I think I can make it happen. Give me another day. You've got 12 hours, Elena said, checking her long-range sensors. The Kethik are moving. They're bringing in more ships. I think they're planning to sweep the entire debris field. Then they're in for a surprise, Marcus said grimly. The Valdrin survivors had mostly come aboard now, offering their expertise. High Talon Zisk still looked disgusted by the entire project, but even he couldn't deny the results. Systems that should never work together were functioning. Not well, but functioning. A young human technician named Lisa Rodriguez had a breakthrough with Zisk's damaged armor. Try moving your arm now, she said. Zisk raised his arm. The servos whined and clicked but worked. How did you fix it? The power coupling was completely destroyed. Lisa held up a wrench. I hit it really hard in 3 specific places. Percussive recalibration. Old Earth technique, Zisk stared at her. Then at the wrench. Then back at her. You hit it with a hammer. Wrench, Lisa corrected. There's a difference. Despite himself, Zisk made a sound that might have been a laugh. You humans are the most bizarre species I have ever encountered. On the 3rd day, Franken was complete. It hung in space like a metal porcupine, bristling with weapons and sensors from a dozen different designs. The hull was painted in patches where different types of armor had been welded together. The engines glowed with an unhealthy mix of colors. Every sensor said the ship should tear itself apart the moment it powered up. All crew to stations, Elena ordered. Let's see if this thing actually flies. She sat in the captain's chair, which was actually a Valdrin command throne welded to the floor. Marcus was at engineering. Tavrix stood beside him, datapad ready. Tommy was at the helm. Sarah monitored weapons. The rest of the crew, human and Valdrin together, manned the various stations. Power up the reactor, Elena said. Marcus threw the switches. Deep in the ship's core, 3 different power systems activated. They should have fought each other, should have caused a cascade failure. Instead, the lights came on. Screens flickered to life. The engines hummed. We have power, Marcus said, sounding shocked. All systems are green. Well, yellow. Mostly yellow. A few are red but functioning. Elena couldn't help but smile. Weapons? Sarah checked her console. The Kithik plasma lance is charged. Valdrin beam weapons are online. We even have that Sithari missile system working, though I have no idea how to aim it. Point it at the enemy and fire, Elena suggested. That usually works. FTL drive? She asked. Marcus hesitated. Theoretical. I won't know if it works until we try it, and there's a 30% chance it tears a hole in space-time when we activate it. I'll take those odds, Elena said. She activated the ship-wide intercom. All hands, this is the captain. What we're about to do has never been done before. We've built a warship from wreckage. We've combined technologies that should never work together, and somehow impossibly it works. We're calling this ship Franken, and it's going to get us out of here alive. Prepare for combat. We're breaking through that blockade. Outside the viewport, sensors detected movement. The Kethik had found them. A patrol of 6 ships was approaching their position. They're hailing us, Sarah said. Put them through. The Kethik commander appeared on screen, all chitin and mandibles. Human vessel, you are trapped. Surrender and your deaths will be quick. Elena leaned back in her stolen Valdrin chair. This is Captain Elena Reeves of the warship Franken. Come and get us. She cut the transmission and looked at her crew. Humans and Valdrin working together, manning a ship that shouldn't exist. Tommy, take us out. Let's see what Franken can do. The Kethik patrol ships moved in, 6 predators circling wounded prey. Their formation was textbook perfect, each ship covering the other's blind spots. They had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They knew what they were doing. Franken lurched forward like a drunk giant. The engines sputtered, fired at different intervals, and somehow pushed the ship ahead. Tommy fought with the controls, trying to make sense of the mixed flight systems. She handles like a shopping cart with a broken wheel, he muttered. Then push the cart harder, Elena said calmly. Sarah, target the lead ship. Fire when ready. Sarah's hands moved across her console. The Kethik plasma lance charged with a sound like grinding metal. She aimed at the nearest enemy ship and fired. The lance shot out, but not in a straight line. It curved slightly to the left, wobbled, then hit the Kethik ship in the engine section. The ship exploded in a ball of green fire. That wasn't where I aimed, Sarah said, shocked. Did it work? Elena asked. Yes, but then keep firing. The Kethik responded instantly. 5 ships opened fire at once, plasma and kinetic rounds filling the space where Franken had been, but Tommy had already jerked the ship to the side, using the uneven engine thrust to dodge in a way no normal ship could manage. The weapons fire passed harmlessly by. They're trying to predict our movement, Tommy said, grinning now, but Franken doesn't move like anything they've seen before. Marcus's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I'm getting weird readings from the power system. The 3 reactors are fighting each other, but somehow it's generating more power than it should. Is that dangerous? Helena asked. Absolutely, but we can use it. Redirecting excess power to shields. The Valdrin shield generators activated, creating a bubble of blue energy around Franken. A Kethik missile hit the shields and detonated. The ship shook but held together. Tavrix was staring at his instruments in disbelief. This is impossible. The power distribution is completely chaotic, but it's working. I need to document this. Document later, survive now, Marcus told him. Franken dove deeper into the debris field, using the wreckage as cover. The Kethik ships followed, but they were cautious now. They had expected an easy kill. Instead, they had lost 1 ship, and their target was fighting back with weapons that shouldn't exist. Sarah, try the Valdrin beam weapons, Elena ordered. Sarah switched systems. The beam weapons fired with perfect accuracy, slicing through a piece of debris and hitting a Kethik ship beyond it. The enemy's shields held, but just barely. Now the Sithari missiles. Sarah launched the crystalline missiles. They flew out in a swarm, moving like living things. 3 of them hit 1 Kethik ship from different angles. The ship's shields collapsed and the hull ruptured. 4 ships left, Tommy reported. And they're calling for backup. I'm reading more ships on the way. How many more? Elena asked. All of them. The entire blockade fleet is converging on our position. Elena took a deep breath. This was it. They had proven Franken could fight. Now they had to prove it could survive. Marcus, status on the FTL drive? Still theoretical, Marcus called back. But I can give you something else. Remember how I said the power systems are fighting each other? Yes? I think I can make them fight harder. Sync all 3 systems for just a moment. Channel the output through the Kethik plasma lance. It'll create a massive energy discharge. How massive? Small star going supernova massive. But it'll only work once and it might destroy the ship. Elena looked at her screens. More Kethik ships were appearing on sensors. Dozens of them. The main fleet would be here in minutes. They needed something big, something the Kethik wouldn't expect. Do it, she said. But give me a 30-second warning. Tommy, Sarah, we're going to make 1 attack run and then jump to FTL. We get 1 shot at this. The crew worked frantically. Marcus and Tavrix were in engineering, manipulating the power systems in ways that made the Valdrin scientist mutter prayers to his gods. Sarah plotted firing solutions. Tommy prepared the FTL drive, hoping it would actually work. High Talon Zisk stood beside Elena, watching the tactical display. This is madness. You are outnumbered 20 to 1. Yep, Elena agreed. Your ship is held together with welding and hope. Mostly hope, actually. And you are attacking anyway. Elena smiled at him. That's what humans do. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Zisk made that sound that might have been a laugh. Then I suppose I'm honored to die beside you in this stupid, beautiful ship. The Kethic fleet arrived. 18 warships, each one bigger and better armed than Franken. 2 massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, support craft and fighters swarming around them like insects. It was an overwhelming force designed to crush any resistance. All ships, the Kethic commander broadcasted. Destroy the human abomination. Elena keyed the ship-wide intercom. All hands brace for combat. Marcus, you've got 30 seconds. Tommy, as soon as we fire, punch the FTL drive and pray. Franken accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Every alarm on the ship was screaming. The hull groaned as mismatched systems strained against each other, but the ship held together through sheer human stubbornness. 20 seconds, Marcus counted down. The power systems are synchronizing. This is going to be rough. The Kethic fleet opened fire. Plasma and missiles and beam weapons filled space with deadly light. Franken's shields took hit after hit, flickering and nearly failing. A kinetic round punched through the armor, venting atmosphere from Deck 4. Another hit took out the secondary sensors. 10 seconds. Captain, the power levels are exceeding safe limits. There's nothing safe about any of this. Keep going. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, firing. Every light on Franken went out. For a heartbeat, the ship was dark and silent. Then every power system on the ship discharged at once, channeling through the modified Kethic plasma lance. The energy that came out was white-hot and furious, a beam of pure destruction. It hit the lead Kethic dreadnought dead center. The ship's shields didn't just fail, they exploded outward. The beam punched through the hull like paper and the dreadnought came apart in a series of catastrophic explosions. The energy discharge spread, washing over nearby ships. 3 Kethic warships were vaporized instantly. 2 more lost power and started drifting. The second dreadnought's shields collapsed, leaving it crippled and helpless. Inside Franken, emergency lights flickered on. The ship was shaking itself apart. Metal screamed as the hull twisted. Conduits burst, spraying coolant into corridors. The reactor was redlining, seconds away from meltdown. Tommy, FTL now, Elena shouted. Tommy slammed his hand on the control. The FTL drive activated, pulling power from 3 different systems at once. Space bent around Franken in a way that defied physics. The ship lurched sideways through dimensions it shouldn't be able to access, and suddenly they were somewhere else. The Kethic fleet was gone. The debris field was gone. They floated in empty space 5 light years from where they had been. The ship went quiet except for the sound of alarms. Smoke filled the corridors. Half the systems were offline, but they were alive. Status report, Elena said quietly. We're a mess, Marcus reported. The hull is breached in 6 places. Both reactors are damaged. Half our weapons are gone. But the FTL drive worked. We actually jumped. Casualties? 3 injured, none serious. The Veldrin survivors are all safe. Elena let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. They had done it. They had survived, Captain, Sarah said, her voice strange. You need to see this. Elena looked at the communications console. It was lighting up with dozens of incoming messages. From human ships, from colony worlds, from news networks across the galaxy. What is it? The battle was broadcast, Sarah said. Someone recorded it and sent it across the networks. The entire galaxy just watched us build a warship from garbage and fight our way through a Kethic blockade. Tommy was reading the messages, his eyes growing wider. Captain, we're famous. They're calling it the Battle of Ashcan Field. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. Human crews everywhere are trying to copy what we did. Elena stood up, wincing at her bruises. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching, wondering, fearing. Good, she thought. Let them fear. Let them remember that humans don't give up, don't surrender, and don't know when to quit. 3 days after the Battle of Ashcan Field, Elena stood in front of a communication screen, addressing what felt like the entire human species. The recording would be sent to every colony, every station, every human ship in the galaxy. She had spent those 3 days making repairs. Franken still looked like a disaster, but it could fly and fight. That was all that mattered. The Valdrin survivors had chosen to stay aboard, and High Talon Zisk now wore a patch on his armor that read Franken Crew in human letters. To all humans listening, Elena began, 3 days ago, my crew and I were trapped in a debris field, hunted by an enemy fleet. We could have surrendered. We could have waited to die. Instead, we built a warship from wreckage and fought our way out. Other species think we're weak because we work with scraps and salvage. They don't understand what that really means. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Humanity reached the stars in tin cans. We survived wars with duct tape and determination. We've always built empires from ruins. That's not weakness. That's our greatest strength. So to every human out there facing impossible odds, remember this. We don't need the best equipment. We just need equipment and the will to make it work. Show the galaxy what humans can do when you give us garbage. We'll turn it into weapons. The message spread across human space like wildfire. Within hours, responses came flooding in. Human salvage crews were already gathering at old battlefields, examining wreckage with new eyes. Colonial defense forces were requesting technical schematics. Even the human military wanted to understand what Elena had done. But not everyone was happy. The Galactic Council was furious. The emergency session was broadcast across the galaxy. 17 species, the most powerful civilizations known, all arguing about what humans had done. Elena watched the broadcast with her crew, eating protein bars in Franken's battered mess hall. The humans have violated technological synthesis laws, a Zenithia ambassador declared, their crystalline body pulsing with angry colors. They have combined incompatible systems without proper safety testing. This sets a dangerous precedent. They have also destroyed a Keithic dreadnought, a Valdran representative countered. Elena recognized the voice. It was High Talon Zisk's commander, Admiral Corvin. The humans were defending themselves against an illegal blockade. Should we punish them for surviving? The method matters, the Zenithia insisted. If other species begin creating these hybrid weapons, the chaos could destabilize galactic peace. Marcus snorted. Peace. They just don't like that someone found a way to fight back without needing their fancy technology. Elena had to agree. The galaxy's power structure was built on technological superiority. The old species had better weapons, better ships, better everything. That gave them control. But humans had just proven that you didn't need superior technology. You just needed creativity and desperation. Captain, incoming message, Tommy called from the bridge. It's marked priority military. From Earth. Elena went to take the call. The face that appeared on screen was General Catherine Walsh, head of Earth's defense forces. Elena had served under her during the border conflicts. Captain Reeves, Walsh said without preamble, you've started a revolution. Every human colony with a salvage yard is now trying to build warships. Half of them don't know what they're doing, but the other half are succeeding. We're calling it the Wreckage Doctrine. Elena felt a chill. General, I was just trying to survive. I know, but you've changed everything. The galaxy is watching us now, really watching. Some species are terrified. Others want to learn. The Valdran have requested a formal alliance. They want scientist Lieutenant Tavrix to teach at their military academy, and they want him to teach human methods. What do you need from me? Elena asked. Come home. Bring Franken. The engineers need to study what you built, and then I need you to teach others how to do it. Can you do that? Elena looked around her ship, at the patched hull and mismatched systems, at her crew, human and Valdran, working together, at the impossible machine they had built. Yes, General, we can do that. 6 months later, the Wreckage Doctrine was official human military strategy. The change was dramatic and swift. Human colonies that had been defenseless were now building orbital platforms from asteroid debris. Salvage crews had become military contractors, combining wreckage into functional weapons. The most famous success came from New Terra, a farming colony on the frontier. When a pirate fleet attacked, the colonists had only 3 days' warning. They took every piece of scrap metal they had, every broken shuttle and damaged mining equipment, and built a defense station in orbit. It was ugly and barely functional, but when the pirates arrived, the station's improvised weapons drove them off. The recording of that battle spread faster than Elena's original message. The galaxy watched farmers and miners turn trash into weapons. They watched untrained civilians coordinate complex construction projects. They watched humanity's most fundamental trait on display, the refusal to give up. Not every attempt succeeded. The colony on Artemis 7 tried to build a warship and created something that exploded on launch. The mining station at Beta Centauri built a weapons platform that worked perfectly, but forgot to include life support for the crew. Humans were learning through trial and error, and sometimes those errors were fatal, but they kept trying. That was the thing that scared other species the most. Humans failed, learned, and tried again. They didn't see failure as a reason to stop. They saw it as data for the next attempt. Elena spent those months traveling to human colonies teaching the Wreckage doctrine. She showed engineers how to adapt power systems. She taught welders how to join incompatible metals. She explained the philosophy behind it all. Perfection is impossible, but good enough can save your life. Marcus became a celebrity among human engineers. He published papers on chaos engineering and adaptive system integration. Universities wanted him to teach. Military academies wanted him to train cadets. He declined all offers and stayed with the crew, because he liked fixing impossible problems more than talking about them. Tavrix did accept the teaching position at the Valdran Military Academy. His course on human engineering methods became the most popular class in the school. Young Valdran officers learned about duct tape, percussive maintenance, and the human principle of if it's stupid but it works, it isn't stupid. The Galactic Council eventually gave up trying to ban the Wreckage doctrine. They couldn't enforce the ban, and they couldn't ignore the results. Humans had proven that warfare wasn't just about who had the best technology. It was about who could adapt fastest, think most creatively, and refuse to surrender. A year after the Battle of Ashcan Field, Elena returned to the debris field. Franken had been repaired, upgraded, and was now a legitimate warship. The military wanted to retire it to a museum, but Elena had argued to keep it active. It was a symbol, she said, a reminder. She stood at the monument that had been erected at the battle site. It was made from a piece of Franken's original hull, the section that had taken the most damage. Inscribed on it in 17 different languages were the words, "They thought we were weak because we work with scraps. We proved them wrong." High Talon Zisk stood beside her, still wearing his Franken crew patch. He had declined reassignment to the Valdran fleet, choosing instead to serve as cultural liaison aboard the human ship. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Starting all this?" Elena thought about that. She thought about the colonies now protected by improvised defenses. She thought about the species that now took humanity seriously. She thought about the young engineers learning that creativity mattered more than resources. "No," she said finally. "We reminded the galaxy what humans are, survivors who turn defeat into victory." That needed to be said. "The Kethik have not forgotten," Zisk warned. "They are rebuilding their fleet, and they are studying your tactics." Elena smiled. "Good, let them study. By the time they finish, we'll have invented something new. That's what humans do. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. They can study the past all they want. We're already building the future." She turned away from the monument and back to her ship. Franken waited in the darkness, a patchwork monster that had changed the galaxy. It was ugly and strange and shouldn't exist, just like every other impossible thing humanity had ever built. "Come on," she said to Zisk. "We have work to do. I heard about a debris field near the Andromeda cluster. Someone should check it out." Zisk made his laughing sound. "You want to build another warship?" "Maybe, or maybe we'll find something better. Won't know until we look." They returned to Franken together, human and alien, ready for whatever came next. Behind them, the monument gleamed in the starlight, a testament to the day humanity taught the galaxy to fear scavengers. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Ashcan Field, and the galaxy had changed in ways nobody predicted. The change wasn't sudden or violent. It was gradual, like water wearing down stone, but it was undeniable. Captain Elena Reeves sat in her office aboard the orbital station above New Earth, reading reports. She was older now, with gray streaking through her dark hair. She had retired from active duty 2 years ago, but retirement for Elena meant teaching at the academy and consulting on impossible projects. She couldn't stop working even if she tried. The reports told an interesting story. Human defensive platforms now protected over 300 colonies. 17 species had adopted modified versions of the Wreckage doctrine. The Galactic Council had created new laws about salvage rights and technological synthesis, but enforcement was impossible. The genie was out of the bottle. Most interesting were the reports about other species. The Tyranni, a peaceful trading civilization, had used human techniques to build an asteroid defense network that protected their entire system. The Selkath, who had been bullied by larger powers for centuries, had constructed a fleet from abandoned mining equipment and successfully defended their borders. Smaller species across the galaxy were learning that you didn't need to be powerful. You just needed to be creative. A knock on her door interrupted her reading. "Come in." Marcus Chen entered, looking exactly the same as he had 5 years ago, except for more gray in his beard. "You busy?" "Always." "What's up?" "Got a call from the Artemis sector. Colony there found something interesting in an old battlefield. They want our opinion before they start building." Elena smiled. "They're asking permission now?" "That's new. They learned from Artemis 7's mistakes. Nobody wants their defense station to explode on launch anymore." Marcus sat down across from her. "Are you going to go look?" "Thinking about it." "You interested?" "Are you kidding?" "Of course I'm interested. Jennifer and Tommy are already packing. Sarah wants to come too. The whole old crew is ready to go." "What about Tavrix?" "He's on sabbatical from the academy. He says he misses fieldwork." Also, High Talon Zisk sent a message. He's been promoted to admiral, but he wants to join us. Says it's for diplomatic relations, but I think he just misses the excitement. Elena leaned back in her chair. She had thought her days of salvaging and building were over. But maybe retirement didn't suit her after all. "All right, let's go see what they found." 3 weeks later, they arrived at the colony and Elena understood why they had called. The battlefield was enormous, even larger than Ashcan Field. It was from an ancient war, older than any recorded history. The wreckage was strange, built with technologies nobody recognized. And there was so much of it. The colonists had already started preliminary work. They had sorted the wreckage by type, created safe zones for construction, and even built a temporary workshop. They were organized and professional. This wasn't a desperate attempt to survive. This was a planned project by people who knew what they were doing. "We want to build a defense station," the colony leader explained. She was a young woman named Kira Santos, an engineer by training. "But we don't want to just copy what others have done. We want to push the boundaries, create something new." Elena looked at the eager faces around her. These weren't scared survivors. They were innovators excited by the challenge. "Show me what you found." What they had found was remarkable. Power systems that operated on principles human science didn't fully understand. Hull materials that could repair themselves. Weapons that bent space rather than firing projectiles. It was all ancient, all damaged, but potentially revolutionary. "This is beyond anything we worked with at Ashcan," Marcus said, examining a strange crystalline engine. "If we can make this work, we won't just be building a defense station. We'll be building something that advances human technology by decades. Or we'll create something that explodes spectacularly," Jennifer added. "These systems are seriously weird." Tavrix was documenting everything with the enthusiasm of a scientist who had found paradise. "The mathematical principles behind this technology are fascinating. If we can integrate even a fraction of it, the applications would be limitless." Admiral Zisk stood beside Elena, watching the younger crew members swarm over the wreckage. "They remind me of your original crew. That same desperate creativity, but refined, improved." "They learned from our mistakes," Elena said. "That's how progress works." Over the following months they built. But this time was different from Ashcan Field. There was no enemy fleet bearing down on them, no desperate race against time. They could take their time, experiment, and learn. They could fail safely and try again. The defense station they built was beautiful in its own strange way. It combined human, Valdran, and Kethic technology with the ancient systems they had found. It looked organic, almost alive, with hull sections that shifted and adapted. The weapon systems could reconfigure based on threats. The shields could absorb energy and redirect it. They called it Aegis 1, and it was a masterpiece of adaptive engineering. The day they activated it, representatives from a dozen species came to watch. The Galactic Council sent observers. Even the Kethic swarm sent a delegation, though they kept their distance from Elena. "This is more than a defense station," Kira explained during the ceremony. "This is proof that the wreckage doctrine has evolved. We're not just surviving anymore. We're innovating. We're advancing. We're taking the best from every species and creating something new." The station powered up perfectly. Every system worked in harmony. It was the opposite of Franken's chaotic, barely controlled systems. This was refined, elegant, and still uniquely human in its hybrid nature. After the ceremony, Elena walked through the station alone. She ran her hands over the walls, feeling the mix of technologies that shouldn't work together but did. She thought about that desperate day at Ashcan Field. when they had built a warship from garbage just to survive. She thought about how far humanity had come,